E3 season is rolling around the corner and I need to get a video up because these other ones are taking way too long. I have my own predictions, my speculations of what's going to be announced this year, and I'm still waiting for Nintendo to announce their own direct. They have two games they still haven't given a date for, Duskbloods and that new Fire Emblem game. And since Nintendo likes doing a slow rollout, something that they've been doing since 64, they still haven't announced their holiday season games. It's been almost a year since their large last general direct, and I'm still waiting on a date for which book to come out, which I've been waiting for such a long time now. Chucklefish, more like Cucklefish. When's this game coming out? The Summer Games Fest website is showcasing all of their game announcement events, and it's loaded with a bunch of indie spotlight showcases, which I'm really excited for. This is going to be the perfect time to fill up my wishlist and see which indie darlings are going to make it up to the top. We might even get lucky and see which indie games get nominated at the Game Awards. Then it's going to be so fun to see all of the people who only play ball and gun games complain and say, what game is that? I've never heard of it. I've only played Call of Duty, Fortnite, Madden 2K, and the 3 AAA action adventure games that come out every year. That being said, I am actually very excited to see what PlayStation has in store for us. I'm not as excited for the not comic book accurate 5'4" short King Wolverine game though. I don't know why they're so scared to make this man short, but Sony's State of Play back in February 2026 was actually very impressive. Even though they announced like 30 games that time, people were still saying they announced no games somehow. And Sony is trying really hard to find their one live service game that they could milk forever, and Bungie failing them at every single step. Bungie is a shell of a developer that they used to be. It's really sad to see them go this way. I think one of the games I was actually pretty excited to see during that last State of Play was Project Windless, the giant chicken action adventure game, and a new Kenneck game, Scars of Cosmora. I know PlayStation is really gunning for a big live service game, but I gotta say their single player lineup is looking pretty good. One thing that's not gonna happen is PlayStation or Xbox announcing a new console, especially with AI slot bringing up the price of every bit of technology. If my RAM or SSD broke down in June of 2025 last year, I would have been able to replace them with $50 to $100, but now it's gonna cost me around $300 to $600. Speaking of Xbox, I know everybody's hyped up about their new CEO making some pretty good changes and taking a step back on AI, but the CEO can only make so many good choices before Microsoft, the parent company, decides to lay off another 9,000 employees. As much as Xbox's bad marketing choices were because of their former CEOs, the most detrimental choices came because of Microsoft disrupting the whole entire gaming ecosystem. Games failing to meet sales expectations because Microsoft wanted to push day one on Game Pass, shutting down studios with successful or critically successful projects like Hi-Fi Rush, or forcing developers like Arcane Studios to make a live service game, making them churn out the failure that was Redfall. Microsoft putting their grubby hands all over Xbox and forcing them to meet profit margins that no other game company would ever be able to make was the reason why their reputation was almost 6 feet in the ground. Is the reason why people thought and still think that Xbox was going to just abandon consoles and become a software-only company. It's kind of hard to get excited for Xbox game announcements if you're wondering if they're going to do another round of layoffs and cancellations. Over this past year, I've kind of come to realize that Xbox is kind of a plague on the gaming atmosphere and ecosystem. They didn't create an Xbox studios or developers, they just kind of bought their way in by buying other developers to make games for them. Developers who already had their own IPs that Xbox can use to make themselves famous. They didn't own Halo and they turned Rareware into an unrecognizable shell of their former selves. Then after the Xbox One started to fail because they don't know how to sell a console,
I'm thrilled to announce a live-action Halo television series.
Television, TV, sport.
Television, TV.
and PlayStation's E3 conference was just them saying we're not going to do any of the things that Xbox is planning on doing, which solidified PlayStation as the winner of the console war. But Xbox didn't give up and decided if you can't beat them, eat them, and bought like 5 studios to acquire all their intellectual properties. This also included their purchase of Bethesda and Activision Blizzard. They made it so they couldn't be ignored and got a permanent foothold in the gaming market. They couldn't bring anything to the table, so they decided to eat everything on it, just like that John Goodman Family Guy skit.
Please, Daddy.
I told you, when I'm finished, you can have what's left.
There won't be any left. There's never any left. Happy Thanksgiving!
This actually scared PlayStation, thinking that Xbox was going to have too much power and pressure over them. I'm hoping that people understand that Xbox didn't use their vast amounts of unending wealth to provide a natural foundation for people to build their art community and own brand off of, but instead use their extensive amounts of wealth to buy their way in and get a foothold on a lucrative market, where they can be sure that they can exude more control over a large amount of media, and use the extensive space that they've now taken up to sell their unneeded software and BS AI slop. Xbox using the American tactic of putting a proxy state in the center of the Middle East to make sure that they have military control and can always apply pressure on certain countries that have vast amounts of oil reserves, and gain excellent tactical advantage spots against their enemies like Russia and China. Now that they bought their way in and pushed competition out, they have more and better opportunities to put pressure on certain targets for better negotiation tactics, while using all of the goodwill from the state's name that you helped to bring up, using them as a shield so you won't take any of the blame and most of the faults will fall on them, even though the glorified military base wouldn't exist without you giving them billions of dollars in defense contracts every single year. What does this have to do with Xbox, you might ask? Well, it's not just the parallels between geopolitical imperialism and capitalistic oligarchical takeovers of flourishing markets and communities. It might have something to do with them owning two of the most popular best-selling military first-person shooter games on the market, which studies show it's actually a really good tool to use as a way to propagandize the youth into joining the military, to the point where Call of Duty and other military video games get partial funding from the US Armed Forces, to make sure that any propaganda being pushed in the game is actually in favor of the US military and not against it. Lastly, Microsoft themselves working with the proxy state to help commit war crimes against their neighboring countries, but I guess Xbox fits in there somewhere? What was I talking about again? Oh, right, E3 season. I'm so excited to see so many fantastic games, so many in fact, that I don't think I'll ever have the money to afford to play all of them. And even if I did have the money to play all of them, I wouldn't have the time. Here's a list of my predictions of what I hope to see, my hopes, my dreams, what's gonna get me through this year, and what's gonna get me through the next year. I hope there's a lot of good announcements so I can fill out my Steam wish list a little more. I hope you guys enjoyed the showcases and many events. What do you think they're gonna announce, and what are you most excited for? Well, I'll see you all in the next video.